bridge across the Missouri River. So, John, this is going to be a long haul for drivers for many weeks ahead.
Okay, Bessie.
Earlier, things looked like they were running smoothly. They didn't have any problems. That is not the case now. We're seeing some backup. Of course, that congestion is because the Blanchette Bridge is one of the only two open bridges to get into St. Louis County. Now, what the Highway Department has done, if you are traveling on eastbound 70 and then trying to catch southbound 270, they have made 2 lanes to try to alleviate some of this traffic. It had been working up to this point, but you see it's starting to back up at this point. And the Highway Department also told me from the point where we're at right now, 10 miles west, that's how far traffic is backed up. Now, roads that affects, that's the Highway K O'Fallon exit. That is the Cave Springs exit. That is also the Mid-Rivers Mall exit. That is the Zumbo Bogey Hills exit and also the 94 exit. That is a lot of exits onto Highway 70 that are now just jammed packed. So if there is any way that you do not have to go out on the roadways, please stay in. Let me tell you about the...
There'll be nothing out.
Jennifer?
When it's coming in on the north end, at that level, will cover all the acreage that's in there.
So what are officials going to do next?
Watch it, I guess. There's not much we can do at this point. Just wait and hope the river goes down fairly quick. What you're looking at right there now on the picture, that in the middle there is a high school and a grade school that's there, gymnasium, and we just flew over that a while ago. That's got water in it, I would say probably 3 foot at the present time.
Bob, Jeff Fowler up in Chopper 5 has a question for you. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, Jennifer, before I have a question, I was going to say further south, Mr. Ripplemeyer was talking about already probably a half a mile or more south. Much of the area is starting to fill in with water. And I was just wondering how many, Mr. Ripplemeyer, how many farms, you talked about the population of Valmeyer, but how many people do we have, farm homes and any other people between where we are now and Prairie du Rocher?
Well, from a little north of there, where that levee broke down to the Prairie du Rocher area, there's approximately 200 families. And you know, that would be, I'd say, probably 150 homes, 150 farms.
Mr. Ripplemeyer, has anybody given you any indication, the Corps of Engineers or anyone else, how long it will take for all of this area to fill in with water?
No, they haven't. Just from the time that it broke last night to when we were over this morning, I'd say that in another 24 hours it would pretty well be all covered.
Okay, Jeff Fowler and Bob Ripplemeyer, thank you very much for joining us this morning with the latest on the new levee break there. Just sort of a wait-and-see situation now.
No question about it. 8.6 feet. Now, I should point out to you that we don't have any readings from St. Charles, Valley Park, or Arnold as of yet. Yesterday, St. Charles was at 39.3 feet, and then the levee started giving way in Monroe County, Illinois, and the water level fell almost a foot there. St. Louis was up to 49.4 feet yesterday, and the river levels also fell there very quickly as the levees in Monroe County, Illinois, gave way yesterday. Because of the excessive amount of acreage that's going to be underwater, we really don't expect to see the rivers climbing back as high as they were yesterday. So we are looking for the river levels to stay about where they are now, except to the south of St. Louis, which we will continue to see the river rising there somewhat. Now, it is a quiet day across the area weather-wise. The temperature...
The metro area. On my right is the Burger King boat that earlier we reported had broken loose last night. The Burger King boat is up against the Missouri side of the Mississippi River. It's very difficult for us right now to tell how much damage has been done to the boat. I would guess we are about maybe a mile south of the Poplar Street Bridge. That's where the boat ended up, or where they were finally able to take it to shore. We're going to head back toward the Valmeyer area. As we reported earlier, that town is levees have broken there, and we are going to head back to Monroe County, Illinois, to update the situation. We should tell you, right before we left, we saw a huge electrical transmission tower. One of those tall metal towers had fallen over in the water. and that's obviously going to cause even more problems down in that area, but we're headed back down there now, and we'll bring you up to date hopefully in a few minutes. Reporting live from Chopper 5, Jeff Fowler, News Channel 5.
Restaurants broke free from the permanent dock in front of the arch. The USS Inaugural and a helicopter pad were torn away from their moorings. The boats floated downriver and struck the Poplar Street Bridge, which authorities then closed to traffic. By midnight, officials corralled the runaway boats with barges just south of the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. There were no injuries, and the Poplar Street Bridge was reopened about 1:30 this morning.
This morning in Monroe County, sending a wall of water rushing onto farmland. In less than an hour, an entire farm, silos, barns, and a home were literally washed away, and here are those dramatic pictures now. A few hours later, another farmhouse was torn apart by these raging floodwaters. Well, the Major reports on the situation and what is being done to get water to the people.
The levee along the Mississippi held. The problem developed when floodwater backed up in the sewer system and flooded the Illinois Water Company treatment plant and most of downtown Alton.
The water came through the sewers, came through the basements of buildings, and for lack of pumps, we couldn't contain it.
The water distribution sites that were set up last week in and around Alton are busier now as more and more residents are turning their faucets on at home and getting nothing.
It just quit all of a sudden, so I figured I'd better come up here and stock up a little. I did all my laundry and everything ahead of time.
Other residents have water service, but they don't know for how long.
When I left at about 5:45, I still had water running. But I don't know if it'll be when I get back or not. Hopefully it will. I got all containers filled, even little Cool Whip containers.
The city says the bulk water distribution will continue until further notice.
We wanted to plan for the unexpected. Unfortunately, the worst happened, but I feel very fortunate that we have Plan B. Now what we're going to do is accelerate it.
Emergency services are still operating in the Alton area despite the water shutdown. St. Anthony's Hospital is getting 6,000 gallons of water trucked in every 4 hours from East Alton.
Where we normally had received water service before, we have simply converted to the trucked water that we're getting. And so we're able to pressurize to a limited degree all the essential functions of our institutions.
I'm Dan Gray, News Channel 5.
And you can pick up water in and around the Alton area at Alton Square, Central Hardware, SIU Dental School, and Alton High School.
And stay with us throughout the day for our continuing coverage of Flood Watch 93.
This morning, telling to leave. I'm not looking at that tape. I guess I can see it now. As you can see, there are police officers going to the door, alerting people that you have to leave and that it's a dangerous situation. If you don't, you could be hurt or put your life in danger. As we said, there are some people who were very confused and angry about all this.
And it didn't look like very many people were answering their doors. Now, that might have just been the shots that we selected, but were there lots of people who had already left?
Yes. Again, that was just tape we were able to get to you in the moment. There's more we have to show you. We were not able to feed.
Husband's brother-in-law, and I didn't want to see it. I thought every hour on the hour going under, keeping that water down. I thought I had a maid this morning. If the tank wouldn't have went, we probably would have lasted.
Now, obviously, the situation has gotten to that lady there. She says she's going to stay with some relatives in Jennings. She has to go pick up her husband, I believe she said, at a convenience store. So, again, the evacuation is still underway.
The county board chairman in Monroe County, he says decisions are being made in Prairie du Rocher at this time on how to handle the situation. You can see the water pouring through the levee here, and there are no other levees between where we are right now and Prairie du Rocher. Again, the town of Valmeyer, about 900 people, that town is underwater, and the water continues to move south. We'll keep you updated. I've got Alan Barclay with me. Alan, the force of the water continues to be very powerful through here.
Well, this is definitely a serious situation up here for these thousands of acres of farmland that's being flooded, even as we're watching this farmland being flooded. So Valmeyer, south, and people are evacuated. They've been evacuated for quite some time. Now, on top of this, they've already issued an evacuation order for the downtown Parks Airport in Cahokia, Illinois. So we may have some problems up there as well.
Yeah, we're going to try to orient you, Joe Young, our photographer. If you can pan up, maybe you can see in the distance the JB Bridge to give you an idea where we are here in Monroe County. We're about how many miles, Alan, would you say we are south of JB Bridge?
We're about 15 miles south of the Jefferson Barracks Bridge on the Illinois side. And as you can see, it's really amazing how much water and how much land has been flooded within the past couple of days right here.
Now, if you were watching with us yesterday morning, all of the area you're seeing yesterday morning, 6 or 7 o'clock, was dry. If you've seen the video of the farmhouses that were swept away yesterday morning, the video that Alan and photographer Joe Young and Gene Jackson had for us, that is the area you're looking at off in the distance there. The water has made its way south now. The only thing standing between that break and Valmeyer was this Fountain Creek levee. As you can see, it is now breached, and the water is heading south and down toward Prairie du Rocher. We'll keep you updated in the morning. Reporting live from Chopper 5 with photographer Joe Young and Alan Barklage, Jeff Fowler, News Channel 5.
Thank you very much, Alan and Jeff.
Massive traffic jams are shaping up on area highways.
Sections of Interstate 70 look like a parking lot this morning. This is how the interstate looks from the sky. Many commuters are being forced onto I-70 since the levee failure at Chesterfield closed Highway 40. Further complicating the commute, the Daniel Boone Bridge is also closed over the Missouri River. It's estimated the gridlock could add 2.5 hours to the normal travel time. Commuters are urged to use mass transit.
The Poplar Street Bridge is open this morning after it was struck by runaway barges on the Mississippi. Just before 11 o'clock last night, the floating Burger King and Taco Bell restaurants broke free from the permanent dock in front of the arch. The USS Inaugural and a helicopter pad were torn away from their moorings. The boats floated runaway boats with barges just south of the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. There were no injuries reported, and the Poplar Street Bridge was reopened about 1:30 this morning.
Now, a levee broke at Fountain Creek, just north of Valmeyer overnight. Valmeyer, as you mentioned, is underwater, in some places 8 or 9 feet of water, and all of that water is moving south toward where we are right now. Again, in about 18 hours, officials predict the water will be here. Joining me is Alan Barklage, who has been down to Prairie du Rocher several times in the last couple of weeks. Alan?
And the sandbag effort just continues, and they plan on, Joe, if you can show us the levee system there, starting from the east side of the town, they plan on raising that entire levee system within the next 18 hours, and that's a heck of a lot of work. But they do have the equipment. The military is down here. The Corps of Engineers say it can be done, so they're going to try to raise the levee, the entire levee system, right down here just north of Prairie du Rocher.
Yeah, that water you see down there is not flood water. Well, it may be a collection, but it's a collection area. That's not what's threatening the town. The levees run around the outside of those collection areas, and a number of officials, federal officials, state officials, are down there looking at the situation. Now Joe is going to pan up a little bit for us, give us a little wider shot. We're looking back toward Valmeyer, looking back north. You can see a number of areas have already filled in. Some of those were already underwater.
Yeah, you can see the water coming south now. You can see the water coming south now from the break last night, Jeff.
And it's difficult, again, to see from how high we are right now, but there is a current moving this way. And again, about 18 hours is what officials predict. It is going to be very busy here. News Channel 5 has Skylink 5 on the way here and a crew on the way here to bring you the latest. But again, 55,000 acres expected to be underwater by sometime tomorrow afternoon. Reporting live with Alan Barklage and photographer Joe Young, Jeff Fowler and Chopper 5 for News Channel 5.
All right, thank you for that report, Jeff.
Phillips president Wayne Allen says there's no way the situation could have been prevented.
No, we really couldn't, and of course the preventive action we took was to go in there, fill the tanks, and be sure we had as much weight as possible in them, and strapped them down, and we attached them into that concrete base down below. And so these record levels are giving us a problem.
Now, the area that was evacuated covers a 1 mile...
Jeff Fowler is in Chopper 5 over Monroe County with details of the levee break. Jeff?
Art and Jennifer, I'm here with Alan Barklage, and we're going to try to give you as best description as we can what has happened here in the last 24 hours. You are looking at the town of Valmeyer. This time yesterday, this town was high and dry. There is still some sandbagging going on over here, but it is almost a useless effort. 3/4 of the town is now underwater. Photographer Joe Young is panning across to give you an idea of how much water is here. There is the last sandbagging going on at a company here. It's a business, we understand, one of the few places that is not underwater. The school is underwater, churches, homes. In some places, the water, we would guess, is 8 or 9 feet deep. Now, I'm going to ask Joe to widen out and tilt up for you. We're going to show you, kind of orient you a little bit. In the background there, you may be able to see the St. Louis skyline. That'll give you an idea where we are. All of the water between where Joe was shooting a minute ago and what you see now has filled in within the last 26 or 27 hours after that levee break that took out 2 farmhouses yesterday. Now, go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, we might want to mention, too, that this area is evacuated. Everybody got out of this area several days ago, and the only people left in the town of Valmeyer are the ones that are working at the business, trying to save that business. Now, you can see the high school. That's a Valmeyer High School, and it is almost up to the rooftop of the gymnasium right now.
Now, to give you an idea what has caused Valmeyer to go underwater, we want to go to some videotape that our photographer Joe Young shot earlier this morning, and will give you an idea of the force of the water coming in here. This is the levee break on the Fountain Creek levee. Up high, it doesn't look too bad. Now we're down low at the treetop level, and you can see the force of the water. It toppled over, as you can see there, a Union Electric transmission tower. It's one of those big metal transmission towers. It has carried 138,000 volts. Fortunately, the power had been turned at the time, and the power has been rerouted to other places. Again, we are back over the town of Valmeyer. The water is beginning to move south, and Alan, it's headed toward Prairie du Rocher.
18 hours, this water will make its way to Prairie du Rocher, and they are gearing up for the onslaught of the water down there. Now, we did notice some livestock that made its way up to the levees and railroad tracks to be saved a little bit later on. They should be okay.
One other point we want to make before we go. Right now, in places where the water is really filled in, essentially you have a 2-mile wide river now. That has relieved some of the pressure, not only upstream on St. Louis, we are sure, but end up being a salvation for places like St. Genevieve. If the water levels, and Scott Connell will talk about this later on, if the water levels are dropping, no doubt this 55,000 acres that's beginning to flood here has something to do with that. We'll be back with you a little later on. Reporting live from Chopper 5 with Alan Barklage and photographer Joe Young, Jeff Fowler, News Channel 5.
Okay, thanks very much, and we will check back with Jeff and Alan and Joe throughout this newscast.
American Water Company's water treatment plant cutting the water supply to 72,000 people. News Channel 5's Lisa Zigman is standing by in Alton. Lisa, give us an update.
Well, I'll tell you what, Art and Jennifer, it is an eerily calm situation here in Alton. For the past 24 hours, they have been without running water, and yet life goes on. There have been many tourists that are coming down here to Market and 3rd Street to take pictures of the water. Now, from what the mayor tells me, the water has started to recede down in the business district. People are very calm. They're taking pictures, trying to highlight this flood of 93. Also, at the area distribution sites, people are flocking to get their free bottled water. About 75 businesses have been flooded out in downtown Alton. The people who worked so hard to build the levee did not sweat for nothing. Mother Nature had other ways of conquering this town.
What Old Man River did was come in through the back door, through the storm sewers and up through the basements and through the cracks and crevices in the street. And we couldn't keep up with it. We just needed more pumps.
There were people that we interviewed that said they actually felt the streets rumbling.
Oh, that's true. At one time, one section of the downtown business district, it looked like the street was alive. It was moving, and in some respects, it was kind of fascinating to see something like that come alive. But at the same time, it's a lot of destruction, and it's going to cost a lot of money to fix it.
Now, there are several area distribution sites throughout the Alton area tonight, this afternoon, including Alton Square, Central Hardware, SIU Dental School, and Alton High School. All you have to do is bring any kind of clean, empty container, and they'll fill your container up with water, or you can also get some bottled water. Art and Jennifer?
Okay, thanks very much, Lisa. And there are some new water problems reported in St. Charles County. Residents there are being told to conserve their water at least until tomorrow. Jam created by the flooding. News Channel 5's Michelle Hoffland was in St. Charles this morning for what was billed as an unprecedented traffic jam along Interstate 70. She joins us live from the newsroom. Michelle?
Well, Jennifer, it's a traffic jam that's not going to disappear anytime soon. For the first time this morning, drivers coming into St. Louis from the St. Charles County area were forced to experience what life will be like without Highway 40. Now, this is why. Early Saturday morning, floodwaters crashed through the Monarch Levee, burying Highway 40 under as much as 10 feet of water west of Chesterfield. No one knows how long it will be before the highway reappears. That means the 46,000 people who take Highway 40 through Chesterfield must now cram onto Interstate 70. Rush hour this morning turned into rush hours. By 5:56, traffic was piling up at the Blanchette Memorial Bridge. 25 minutes later, the bridge that crosses over the flooded Missouri River began looking like a parking lot. But despite fears of gridlocks, at 7:13, traffic was still moving, even though it wasn't very fast. It's now 8:30 in the morning, and take a look. The traffic jam has virtually disappeared. There were more cars and trucks on this interstate when I first got here at 4:30 in the morning. But the real commuting nightmare took place long before anyone ever reached the highway.
I left my house in St. Peter's at 10 after 6 this morning and tried to take the side roads around. And here I sit at 8 o'clock.
Most of the roads out of St. Charles were transformed into parking lots.
How far'd you go in an hour and a half? About 3 blocks, 4 blocks.
But once Pat Whitty and everyone else made it to the interstate, the speed picked up. During rush hour, speeds range from 5 to 25 miles an hour. Many people left hours earlier for work. Others didn't leave at all. Ken Skaggs told his boss the traffic would be too bad for him to come into work today.
My car's a stick. It's a 67 Ranchero. I just didn't want to wear the clutch out.
No one knows how long commuters will have to live without Highway 40. Until then, here are some congestion cures.
Tens of thousands of motorists in the St. Louis area. High waters forced highway officials to shut down the Clark Bridge into Alton and the McKinley Bridge that connects North St. Louis with Venice, Illinois. Motorists wanting to cross the Mississippi must now use the Chain of Rocks 270 bridge, the Martin Luther King, or the Poplar Street bridges downtown, or you can use the JB Bridge. And flooding on the Missouri River.
Unfortunately, this will be the scenario for St. Charles City and County residents, at least for the next 2 weeks. The Daniel Boone Bridge, which normally handles more than 40,000 cars each morning, shut down after floodwaters swept across Highway 40, cutting off the bridge. Now almost 250,000 commuters must try and cross the Blanchette Bridge or the Highway 370 Discovery Bridge. If you're using the Blanchette Bridge eastbound 70, the Highway Department has expanded the exit ramp onto southbound 270 to 2 lanes in an effort to alleviate some of that congestion. Get up early and be patient. Reporting for News 4 in St. Charles, I'm Lauren Engel.
Toward this farmhouse into rubble. The house was empty because the area had been evacuated last week. Dozens of farms have been literally washed away in the recent rash of levee breaks.
A riverboat restaurant is also swept away until the Poplar Street Bridge stops the runaway barge. This is what the Burger King and Taco Bell boat looks like after colliding with the Poplar Street Bridge. The floating restaurants, the USS Inaugural, and a helicopter pad were all torn away from their moorings by swift floodwaters. The runaway boats were corralled without any injuries to rescue workers. The Poplar Street Bridge was inspected.
Help was on the way to these animals after a News Channel 5 crew spotted a distress sign. The rising waters apparently caught this rancher unaware. Chopper 5 caught sight of the Save Our Horses sign in St. Charles County. After we aired these pictures, authorities in St. Charles began working to free them. We are told the horses are safe and should be moved today. And for people who have been forced from their homes, the St. Charles Humane Society is offering to take care of pets. They say you can bring your pet to the Humane Society on Boone Slick and First Capital Drive.
South St. Louis. The Inaugural has seen rough action before, and this time it came through the flood trek in good shape. The Burger King boat and the Minesweeper and that heliport. The Huck Finn and the Tom Sawyer are being held against a couple of trees along the Arch Ground levee. Normally, hundreds of tourists would be scurrying along the Norquay Sullivan Drive and riding the riverboats, eating on the riverboat restaurant. Well, today that area is covered with 20 feet of water.
Incredible.
It is. Well, weather-wise,
storm activity again tomorrow, but today it's quiet, and by the end of the week, it looks like we may actually get into a very fall-like pattern, and it looks like we've seen the highest of the water in the St. Louis area as well. Let's show you what's going on with the river levels this morning. St. Charles estimated at 39.3 feet this morning, which would about match what it was yesterday at St. Charles before one of the levees gave way in Monroe County, the first to go down there. That actually took some of the water out of the Missouri and then took some of the water out of the Mississippi as well and lowered the river levels. St. Louis at 48.6 feet, Alton this morning at 42.2 feet, Arnold about 44 feet even. And yesterday in St. Louis, I think 49.4 will go down as the highest spot, highest point for the river, and it does not look like we will be climbing all that much. In fact, the river just basically over the next day or two will be fluctuating by about an inch, maybe 2-3 inches, and that appears to be the way it's going to set up. Now, you have seen those amazing levee breaks, especially in Monroe County, Illinois. Now, there's approximately 55,000 acres that is underwater in Monroe County, Illinois, or soon will be. And if we take an average 3-foot depth of that, then there's about 54 billion gallons of water that has filled in the floodplain this morning across Monroe County. So if you think about that, that gives you some reference. You know, you've got the milk jug in the refrigerator. That's a gallon. Imagine 54 billion of those, and that's how much water is spilling into Monroe County, assuming just an average 3-foot depth. If it's any greater than that, obviously, we'd be talking about the much, much higher amounts. All right, let's show you what's going on outside. 68, and no rainfall to report at Lambert Field. Noontime temperatures across the region rather pleasant. In fact, that's
going to be right around 89, 90 degrees here with lots of humidity. Highs this week will be in the mid-80s.
We'll take a look at the tricky traffic situation.
Talking about communities in and around the Patch neighborhood, and the one thing officials cannot tell residents and business owners at this time is when they'll be able to come back. And that's because the threat of fire and explosion remains very real at this point. Now, the evacuation began just after 6:30 all around the Patch neighborhood. The evacuation order applies to residents and to businesses. Some business owners say they are keeping their fingers crossed, hoping their businesses won't go under.
We're worried tremendously. We just try to get all our trucks and our equipment out. We're moving out in the county, and we're just going to do the best we can. And I hope they get these tanks straightened out or whatever they did. They should have done it prior to all this happened, but I don't understand a lot of it.
Mississippi River on the east, Nagle on the north, and Raleigh to Lee May Ferry, Lee May Ferry to Telegraph.
Jeff Fowler is south of there over Prairie du Rocher, where the residents are trying to prepare for the onslaught of water. Jeff?
Art and Jennifer, we're at what will perhaps ground in this fight against waters. We are about 20 miles further south than we were earlier. We are outside Prairie du Rocher, which is high and dry right now. But all of the people here know the water is coming this way. And photographer Joe Young is zooming in on maybe a handful of what are maybe 24 dump trucks that are putting gravel on the levee around Prairie du Rocher at this hour. We estimate that in about 18 to 24 hours, the water that is now going through Valmeyer is now going to be here, and we only have a few hours left to get the levee here built up in preparation for what is coming. In between Prairie du Rocher and Valmeyer, perhaps 40,000 acres of farmland that are all going to be underwater by this time tomorrow. Now you're seeing a wider shot of the general area here, a lot of farmland before you get to Prairie du Rocher. Alan Barklage is up here with me and has been watching this scene for the last 2 days. Alan?
Well, they're saying it's going to take 18 hours for the water to get from Valmeyer down to Prairie du Rocher. So they have 18 hours to support the levee system around the town of Prairie du Rocher, and they are giving it their best shot right now. There are a lot of people down here, a lot of volunteers sandbagging, a lot of gravel trucks, heavy equipment, moving rock to try to get this levee up high enough to take on the onslaught of this water.
Yeah, as you look at Joe, if we can look further north, you see green farmland, and you wonder what all the concern is about. You can't see all of the water that's coming this way, but it is about 20 miles north of here, pouring in from several levee breaks that happened this morning. We want to go quickly to some videotape I believe we have of the Valmeyer area that we shot earlier today, showing. That's Prairie du Rocher video. There we. Again, this is a Prairie du Rocher video, but it is from earlier today when we were down over the sandbagging area. There is some sandbagging going on. But in Valmeyer, obviously, the town of Valmeyer is underwater at this hour. In some places 8 to 10 feet deep. After a levee there, the Fountain Valley levee gave way earlier today. And all of that water is pouring in over this farmland and heading this way, Alan.
Well, you know, we have 18 hours for them to build this levee up, and I've seen at least 15 or 20 dump trucks, and as well as some heavy equipment. Now, we also have some National Guard personnel on the ground down here assisting in this sandbag effort and levee support effort. Now, there's been several Coast Guard helicopters flying around as well. This entire area has been evacuated, but they're still making last-minute checks before the water gets down here.
You know, as you cover this over the course of the weeks and this weekend, the valiant efforts never seem to stop, and that is certainly the case here in Prairie du Rocher, where they are going to be putting up a valiant effort for the next 18 to 24 hours. Reporting live at Chopper 5 with Alan Barklage and photographer Joe Young, Jeff Fowler, News Channel 5.
The Illinois American Power Company shut down yesterday after floodwater contaminated the system. News Channel 5's Lisa Ziegman is standing by now with the latest. Lisa?
Jennifer and Art, at this hour there's a major meeting going on between the mayor of Alton and several of the businesses that have been flooded out. Behind me you can see the water starting to somewhat recede. There's also a lot of tourists that have come out here to take pictures. Traffic continues on Main and 3rd Street. It is a very orderly and calm scene this afternoon as people are bringing their empty bottles and jugs to fill out at the area distribution sites. It's estimated the water plant will be down for about 2 weeks. Residents are urged to flush their toilets only twice a day, left if possible. In fact, they brought in a couple of dozen porta potties this afternoon, and the citizens in Alton were very happy about that. There were lines at area porta potty sites. About 75 businesses downtown are flooded, but the city hopes to start pumping their basements this afternoon.
I just pray for them and cry. That's all you can do, just pray for those poor people, how sad it is for them.
But you feel fortunate.
Oh, I'm lucky. This is no problem getting water, or boiling water. That's no problem at all. I can live like this. It's these people that lost their homes and watching a whole farm leave. You know, and old people and little kids losing everything.
In fact, that's how a lot of people that we spoke to at the area distribution sites felt, that yes, they're inconvenienced, that they don't have running water, but yet they have their homes. Now, of the 75 businesses that have been flooded out, as I said, the mayor and area business leaders are meeting. They are anticipating the cleanup of just the streets to be between $4 and $5 million in the city of Alton. That, of course, may go up as the damage estimates come in. For now, reporting live from Alton, Lisa Ziegman, News Channel 5.
Thank you, Lisa.
Updating our Floodwatch 93.
Stars such as Luke Perry, Lee Greenwood, Louise Mandrell, and Billy Ray Cyrus took part in the event. Former presidential candidate Ross Perot pleaded with viewers to contribute. The telethon was hosted by Bob Hope. All money raised will go to the American Red Cross. Donations aren't just warming the hearts of flood victims, but their stomachs too.
In St. Charles, and pretty much little change elsewhere, at least for the next day or so. And then
we've moved again on you, Art and Jennifer. We are now over I-55 south at Jefferson County, where we're having a number of problems. One lane of southbound 55 is closed because of their sandbagging, trying to keep the water off of it. As a result, the rest of the people moving south are, if you will, gawking at what's going on, causing big traffic jams. Alan Barklage is with me. He's our traffic expert here. I'm going to let him take it from there, Alan.
Well, they've closed one lane, southbound Highway 55, down by Barnhart. And, of course, everybody's bottlenecking. And then to compound that, every once in a while, you see a couple of tractor trailers moving south on Highway 55 side by side, a couple of tractor trailers side by side at about 10 miles per hour. They must be talking to each other or something. The traffic right now on southbound 55 is backed up from Arnold, back past 141, all the way down to the one-lane section. So Relate that into time, you're looking at least a half hour, 45 minutes in traffic on southbound 55. And again, that right-hand lane is closed as you approach Barnhart on South 55.
But 55, I want to stress, is open, but just one of many problems throughout the area today. Another big one, obviously, is in South St. Louis, the problem with the propane tanks there. And now we want to check in with News Channel 5's Sharon Stevens.
Jeff, I tell you, this was an operation on the other side of the river. Lisa, what's going on?
Well, Sharon, thank you very much. We've gotten a lot of new information within the past 15 minutes. The meeting between the mayor and the business leaders has just broken up, and the mayor came out to tell me the business leaders were very anxious, obviously, to get the water out of their business district. And the mayor has said this afternoon they're going to start working with the manholes. Now, the manholes down there are totally underwater. They're going to have some utensils that will come in, lift the cover of the manhole so the water will be seeping in underneath to clear out some of that water. The business leaders had lots of questions. They wanted to know when the water plant will be back online. The answer, probably a couple of weeks. They wanted to know when the water would be out of their business, even with the removal of the manholes, probably about 10 days. There is a plan right now to breach the levee. They are not going to attempt a breach until they are assured that the water will be moving out into the river. They say that will be at least 10 days. They are going to start removal of the manholes this afternoon. The business leaders wanted to know if they'll be able to sell in time for Christmas. The mayor said he just didn't know at this point. However, the city will be assisting the 75 businesses that have been flooded out with temporary relocation. So there will be some help for the businesses. It certainly won't cripple the economy in the town of Alton. But right now, the mayor says he's looking at about $4 to $5 million in damage from the water plant going out yesterday and all the water coming out over here. There are several distribution sites around the city of Alton where people are gathering in a calm, orderly fashion to get their free bottled water. They must come with empty containers and take as much as they need. We will be on top of all the Floodwatch 93 coverage throughout the day. For now, reporting live from Alton, Lisa Ziegman, News Channel 5.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa.
Our Floodwatch critical time. And we'll have Floodwatch 93 updates every hour, cut-ins when events warrant, and a complete report tonight at 5 and 6.
And actually create a breach to allow some of the water in to relieve the pressure upstream so that all of the water doesn't come through here with such force. That obviously has not happened yet. The valves have been opened. The barge has not gone over there and created a breach. And at this point, we're not absolutely sure that that is going to happen. What we do know is water is moving this way from north of here, from Valmeyer. 55,000 acres of farmland and farms is expected to be underwater by this time tomorrow, and the people in Prairie du Rocher have been busy sandbagging and bringing in trucks full of gravel and sandbags today, knowing that the water is coming their way and desperately trying to find some way to get some help before that water gets here, and relieving the pressure or creating a breach to even out the pressure may be one of the answers they're exploring at this hour. We'll keep you updated throughout the show. But that is the latest on the situation, Rick. We talked with some of the county officials in Monroe County, north of us here, who said there's no doubt that the water is coming. In fact, we're going to have Joe, if you can, get a little wider shot, and we're going to point north for you. And I hope that you'll be able to see the water line in the distance there. You see some green area, and beyond that, you see the water. All of that area up there on the right of your screen was not underwater yesterday. Is the town that Joe is zooming in on right now. This water is slowly, methodically moving its way down here, and the folks in...
Went out yesterday, and 73,000 people in that area are rushing out, trying to load up on bottled water. News Channel 5's Lisa Ziegman is live from Alton, and she has the latest for us. Lisa?
Karen and Rick, I'll tell you what, it is a much different scene in Alton than it is throughout the metro viewing area. It is calm. It is almost surreal how placid the situation has become in Alton. It's as if the townspeople have kind of taken a deep breath and shrugged and said, all right, the river's crested, we have survived the worst, and now let's get on with the lives and get the water out of this area. 75 businesses remain flooded. Keep in mind, there is no running water in Alton. People cannot go to the bathroom when they want to and when they need to. There are porta potties throughout the city, and there are lines at those porta potties, but people are dealing and they're coping, and it is the same at the area distribution sites where they're giving out water. People lined up today with their empty containers to get some of that free bottled water. They seem to be under the understanding that while this is an inconvenience, they know that it could have been a lot worse. They, at least, still have their homes. And in fact, a lot of people certainly felt that way today, that while all they have is the inconvenience of getting the bottled water, they do still have their homes. As I mentioned, 75 businesses are flooded out in the downtown area of Alton. One business, however, remains open, and some of them are getting off that business right now. It is the Alton Bell Casino. This has certainly been a different type of flood relief kind of entertainment. Their numbers at the Alton Bell Casino are down, but people are still gambling. They still are on the boat trying to get some kind of alternative form of entertainment to what has been a trying situation. They're also now pumping to remove water from the basements of those flooded out basements. It will be 2 weeks, Rick and Karen, before the plant is up and running again, and we're told probably about 10 days before all the water is out of those area businesses, and of course sometime before we know the true economic impact to the city of Alton. The mayor did tell me just from road repairs to the streets it would be about $4 to $5 million, and that was his first estimate first thing this morning. Reporting live from Alton, Lisa Ziegman, News Channel 5.
Lisa, at those areas where they've set up to disperse water, any shortages there? Are they under control?
Totally under control. They're going to be able to give out about 800,000 gallons of water a day. They have waters coming in from neighboring municipalities. They have water coming in from the state. They have businesses donating water. They say that's not going to be a problem, and people can get as much water as they need.
So for now, it's just tremendously inconvenient.
And what about the Alton Bell? What are they doing for water? Bottled water?
They have bottled water on board. They are operating as if nothing is going wrong. 7 days a week, 6 cruises a day. In fact, somebody from the Alton Bell said, you know, when the water rose, our stock went down. Perhaps when the water goes down, our stock will go back up. They're certainly hoping for that.
Business as usual, it seems like there. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Well, coming up as more.
Later, small fires broke out at the Phillips pipeline facility, and that was enough to scare officials.
And the city officials are still trying to figure out exactly how many people were evacuated.
Rick and Karen, Chesterfield city officials are issuing a warning to any owners of businesses that are affected by the flood. The warning is stay away from your company. Ever since Friday night when the Monarch levee broke, some 500 businesses in the Chesterfield Valley, the lake you see behind me, are now underwater. And since then, county police have said that they have picked up about a handful of people trying to either get into the water or get to a nearby business. Some of them have been sightseers. Others have been business owners trying to retrieve some equipment so they can get out and relocate and reopen. But city officials say this floodwater is just too dangerous. It is too deep. It is rising too fast, and it contains too many contaminants. So officials are warning any business owner in the Chesterfield Valley, please stay away, because they say they're ready to prosecute violators if necessary.
I'm going to repeat it, that a human life is more important than property value.
Process of getting back into operation in other areas of Chesterfield. Some of them have already reopened. Others are finding places and moving back into some office space. Hopefully they're trying to stay in the Chesterfield area. The Chesterfield Chamber of Commerce had a meeting with many businesses today, urging any business owner who was affected by the flood to immediately call FEMA and get a registration number. Apparently that is the process many of these business owners must go through.
St. Louis and in St. Charles and up in Alton by about a foot within about 4 hours. All that water rushing down there relieved the stress on the levees elsewhere. So it's almost as if what happened in Monroe County, as tragic as it was and as tragic as it still is, certainly alleviated the problems in St. Louis, so that the crest that was predicted late last night and early today at 49.7 actually never took place. It was 49.3 early yesterday before the levees breached down in Monroe County, and they've been falling very, very slowly ever since. So there is a bit of good news there.
What about the Missouri, though, and that bulge of water in the Missouri?
The bulge of water is here. All right, this is the bulge of water. Late last night, early this morning, that was the bulge. We really never saw it. We really never sensed it, simply because all that water was rushing down to cover, 55,000 acres down in Monroe County. So again,
the farmland is now, Rick and Karen, slowly filling in with water, moving toward Prairie du Rocher, and in doing so, millions, if not billions, of gallons of water that would have been on the Mississippi have spread out now, and in some areas you have almost a 2-mile wide section of the Mississippi River now that all of this is filled in. In many places the water is 8 to 10, even more than that, feet deep, and is going to continue to fill in for at least another 24 hours. As we told you earlier, we expect the water to reach Prairie du Rocher sometime, possibly tomorrow afternoon. Some 200 farms, we are told, are in this area. Many of them are underwater. We have also left out the little town of Harrisonville. We flew over that a short time ago. Harrisonville, also underwater, as the Mississippi River continues to make its way south and is basically swallowing up anything in its wake. We don't have the force of the water, Karen and Rick, that we had yesterday, but still there is nothing stopping it at this point. Back to you. Over on the east side of town, there has been some sandbagging going on there all day. That business, we're glad to say, is still high and dry, but 3/4 of Valmeyer now underwater. The people
in Iowa felt weeks ago.
Yeah, for the second day now, Alton is without water, and the people there are learning how it feels to go without some of the basics, not have drinking water coming out of the tap, not being able to shower. News Channel 5's Lisa Zigman is live from Alton. Lisa?
I'll tell you what, Rick, it is certainly a humbling experience to know when you want to go to the bathroom, when you need to go to the bathroom, and you can't go. It's certainly some of life's pleasures that we take for granted. You expect it to always be there, and of course it is not. There are porta potties set up throughout the town in Alton, and there are lines at those porta potties. Let me give you a perspective of the flooding situation. Behind me was, or is normally, a parking lot, and over out here, out this way, they had the Alton Fair July 4th, where they had hundreds of people out here enjoying the July 4th holiday. Of course, all that is now changed. The people we've run into just want to record this historic flood. They have their camcorders and their cameras, and they feel perhaps the worst is over. The river has started to recede slowly. However, 75 businesses were flooded out over the past 24 hours. However, basements are being pumped out at this hour, and manholes in the flooded out areas are being lifted up to suck in some excess water. The levees held here in Alton. The problem happened when water oozed out through the sewers and streets.
Section of the downtown business district, it looked like the street was alive. It was moving, and in some respects it was kind of fascinating to see something like that come alive, but at the same time it's a lot of destruction, and it's going to cost a lot of money to fix it.
A lot of money indeed. In fact, it is estimated it will cost about $4 to $5 million just to clean up the streets and the sewage area of downtown Alton. There was a meeting today between the mayor, city leaders, and many of the business owners in downtown Alton. They want the water out now, which is why they were lifting up the manhole covers today and sucking some of that water in, and it has helped as the water has started to recede. They have enough water at the area distribution sites, and people right there are flocking now by the hundreds to pick up their bottled water. The 4 area sites, there are others around the city, but some of the biggest area sites are at the Alton Square Mall, Central Hardware, SIU Dental Campus behind the parking lot, and at Alton High School. Again, there is plenty of water for people to get. Reporting live from Alton, Lisa Zigman, News Channel 5.
You can swing the camera around or give us some idea verbally. People are well aware in this area how the city of Alton lies and rises up from the river. Exactly how far up does that, it's on a rather steep embankment, how far up does the water go in downtown Alton?
In some parts, Rick, it is 6 feet high. You know, right behind me where the parking lot is, you can see schools of fish doing some surface feeding right now. And this, just a few days ago, was a parking lot. It's certainly an enormous amount of water that has come in. You can see some white water where you would normally see in the ocean, breaking where some of the levees were before. There is one area of business, as we mentioned earlier, that is open. That is the Alton Bell Casino, and people are lining up to get in there right now. It is quite an enormous amount of water, but again, the people in Alton is much different than some of the other areas like in Prairie du Rocher or in South City. It's as if a weight has been lifted off their shoulders, and they're at this point breathing a sigh of relief. It is rather calm and almost surreal, Rick and Karen. The people are very placid at this point.
Lisa, from where you are, can you see the tourist information building there, which is across from the grain silos?
No, we can't at this point.
I noticed that the water there is almost up to the roof, which I think will give people an idea of how high the water's gotten in that lower area.
Yeah, it's really incredible, but yet the people here and the spirits of these people have been incredible, as we've seen throughout the metro area, and you got to wonder how long can they hold out. It's been more than a month.
Well, for the most part, it has avoided residential areas in Alton, which I think gives some psychological relief, even though they had the great inconvenience of doing without running water.
Absolutely, and that's what a lot of people we spoke to said today. They said, you know, look, we've got this inconvenience, but at least we still have our homes. And the business leaders, I should point out, they learned today at a meeting, they're going to have the opportunity to be temporarily relocated. Part of the city agencies are going to help them. So while they're going to have some economic damage from these floods, they'll at least be up and operating. And one of the big points today at that meeting, they wanted to be up by Christmas, which is, of course, a big time for them.
We hope so.
A good part of that town is up on a bluff. It's still amazing to see the water that high under the bridge right behind her.
It's true.
Never get used to that sight. We're coming back with more in just a minute.
Effective Gumbo Flats was turning into a lake, closing off Highway 40 and the Daniel Boone Bridge. Acre after acre was taken over by the river as businesses and some homes stood in the way. Prisoners from the county facility had been moved just hours before the floodwaters flooded it to the rooftop. Some people decided to stick it out, and in the end found out nothing was going to stop the Missouri. And those that waited too late to leave had to be rescued from rooftops, some by boat, others plucked from the water by helicopter. Hours later, a cabinet-making building caught fire, and firefighters could do nothing but watch as it went up in smoke while surrounded by water. Sunday, the Missouri turned its fury to St. Charles. A levee topped on the city's north side, forcing hundreds to flee their homes. And the city crews, National Guard, and volunteers went into overtime to create a sandbag wall of defense against further flooding. South of St. Charles, another levee loses its battle, and the river pours into a nearby quarry, creating a spectacular waterfall that rivaled Niagara Falls. And this is another spectacular picture that you're seeing live now. There's about 100 people standing across the westbound lanes of Highway 40. That's something you won't see very often, but you probably will be seeing it for at least the next few weeks here in the Chesterfield area. This is a section of Highway 40 that is closed. It's running right into the river, and there's been a constant flow of spectators coming to and from this area all day long. And everybody, as they're leaving, are just shaking their head, saying words like awesome, amazing, incredible. I think a number of people in this area and throughout the St. Louis area, Alton, Lee May, downtown St. Louis, have a newfound respect for these rivers. And we probably won't ever look at them the same way again. Karen and Rick, back to you.
All right, Dan, once again.
70, and look at this. Traffic on Highway 70 in good shape, and it rolls right along across the Blanchette Memorial Bridge, out past Highway 94 into St. Charles. Now, I want to mention we do have a traffic jam on northbound Highway 270 as you approach Highway 70 making the merge. We also have problems over on 370 at Highway 94 just west of the Discovery Bridge. We'll bring you that news in just a couple of minutes. For News Channel 5 Traffic, I'm Alan Barklage in the KSD Yellow Jet Copter. 2 or 3 foot deep, but evidently the cars were using that exit ramp even though it was closed, and then going north on Highway 94. That station wagon did make it, but look at this traffic jam on Highway 370 at Highway 93 Bridge. Give yourself at least an hour on out to Elm Point. If I were you, I would use Highway 70. Not bad on Highway 70 right now. For News Channel 5 Traffic, I'm Alan Barklage in the KSD.
They're the only sign of life as it used to be. Their owners must have fled without them, and now can't get to them. Good news is people I talked to said they had plenty of notice to move out, and after seeing what happened upstream in other towns, they took those warnings.
Like the Minesweeper Inaugural, a National Historic Landmark, and a heliport. A mooring barge holding a Taco Bell franchise broke away too and sank. How did it happen? The Coast Guard is still investigating.
Because the boats are close to the shore, the cables are less of an angle and more straight up and down from the boat to the boat.
Boats were brought home. They will be moored at a landing facility just south of their old home, and no one is sure at this point if the Spirit will be repaired or scrapped. In South St. Louis, John Auble, the 2 News team.
The Spirit of the river.
The city that was inundated with water last night. Now, this is Highway 94 in St. Charles City. We understand from the fire department that either somebody removed some road closed signs or several motorists simply chose to ignore them, and 4 to 5 cars went through Highway 94 and got stuck underneath water. 4 to 5 cars underwater, and right now the fire department is rescuing the people from the area. We understand about 5 or 6 residents have been pulled from the cars. 2 of the cars are still underwater. You might be able to see a rescue boat there navigating what used to be a highway is now a river in St. Charles. As I asked the pilot to move forward just a little bit, we'll show you what Highway 367 nothing to do with that rescue scene going on below them. They may have a view of it as they sit here, but this is really a major jam. It was put out as an alternate route to Highway 70, and everybody's trying to take 367 into the northern section of St. Charles County, and this is what you find: gridlock. The cars are absolutely
slick, gasoline slick, and a lot of chemicals.
Authorized personnel only. That means owners of the nearly 500 businesses now underwater cannot go back to retrieve any documents or supplies until further notice.
If they get into trouble, it would be necessary for we in the city and the fire district to send someone out to rescue them. So now we're putting more than one person's life in jeopardy.
Cars are lining the street that lead to the DoubleTree Hotel here in Chesterfield Valley as spectators try to get a better look at the flooding. Police say that's just fine, but they say they'll arrest anyone who goes beyond the barricades and into the water.
There simply is no safe area that we can designate for spectators. I believe the coverage of the flood by the media has been excellent, and I would like to assure everyone that they can see much more by watching the evening news than they can by trying to come out and see it firsthand.
And Chief Johnson tells me no arrests have been made yet, but of course that will change as of this hour. Anyone going in there will be arrested. Also, Coast Guard, the Coast Guard's been called in, the Missouri National Guard, to help secure the area. They're doing continuous patrols through the area and around the perimeters there. Also, the St. Louis County Public Works is expected to go in and inspect the area, the valleys, the facilities in the valley there, but that won't happen until the water recedes, Dick and Mandy.
Okay, Victoria, thank you.
And of course, while many lost a lot in that Chesterfield break, a few lost everything in a major break in Monroe County, Illinois yesterday.
There's a lot of original plasters, things like that we couldn't get out. Some of my heavy equipment we just couldn't get out. I was just amazed at the hundreds of my friends that I just have to thank that came and helped rescue so much of these things.
That kind of spirit is keeping many businesses alive in the flood zone and will help many more rebuild. In Chesterfield, Jody Davis, News Channel 5.
270, the traffic is stopped there, an absolute gridlock. Evidently, someone also took the cones away from 94 at the exit east, and two cars drove right off the ramp into the water, waist-high water. We watched a boat check it out to make sure that there wasn't anybody inside. There isn't. There are also a couple of reasons why, again, that 70 is going so well. Carpooling, staggered hours, people leaving early. Don Miller, as you saw just a moment ago, is with me, advising me on all of this.
Pipeline site in Alton, Illinois, knocking out service to 72,000 customers. But as they stood in line for water today, some of them considered themselves lucky.
I still have a house. That's nothing.
One reason the crest did not go as high as predicted at St. Louis is there were numerous levee breaks south of the city, which relieved some of the pressure.
This break on the Illinois side of the Mississippi began rushing across the 46,000 acres the levee protected. Will relieve pressure here as they did in St. Louis.
That's apparently the case, Captain. Someone removed the do not exit sign, and the driver simply exited the bridge and went right down onto the foot of Highway 94.
Okay, thanks very much. As we said, there are still some problems with 7270. Things are, though, moving very smoothly.
The familiar Burger King barge, what once was a tourist attraction, is...
I'd love to see it come back again, yeah.
Warman had the boat built near the St. Louis riverfront back in 1984. He was planning to turn her into a riverboat casino.
Raise that sense of pop.
The three vessels have now been taken to a shipyard where they'll assess the damage. I asked Warman if he is anxious to get aboard. Not really, he said. It's just too sad. In South St. Louis, John Auble, the 2 News team.
Chesterfield Valley, and I took a tour of that area on Sky 2, and what I saw still seems unreal.
If you live in or travel Far West County, you're familiar with the breathtaking panoramic view of the Chesterfield Valley. Well, look at it now. You noticed first that which stands highest above the waterline, the Spirit of St. Louis Control Tower, idle and empty, unable to control the jet planes that bob grotesquely in the muddy water, like buoys marking the corners of buildings or the tops of trees. Many of the planes look as though they've been parked in parking spaces with great skill, leading me to wonder how they will ever be salvaged once the water goes down. Some planes even look like giant fish.
Perhaps the most eerie thing about the flooded Chesterfield Valley is how natural this Missouri River water seems to occupy it. It's almost as if all of these buildings and vehicles sprang up and invaded the river bottom, rather than the other way around.
The roofs of familiar buildings now look like artificial lily pads, and street signs point the watery way to nowhere. Expensive Trucks County Jail, built to hold prisoners, is itself a prisoner to a river that takes what it wants. Basketball hoops 10 feet from the ground are only a foot from the water, giving new meaning to the phrase slam dunked. On a beautiful sunny day like today, the picnic tables at the Smokehouse restaurant would be full of people. It will take many more sunny days to make that happen again.
We leave the sunken Chesterfield Valley by way of Highway 40, which no longer just looks like a boat ramp. It has become one. It is the most amazing thing I think I have ever seen.
The upper Midwest, 30 to 35 inches above normal for the year so far. On to the river numbers. The Mississippi, the river continues to slowly fall at Winfield and continues to hold steady at the crest level in Grafton and Alton. In St. Louis, our record crest was 49.4 feet. That was a little lower than expected because of the effect of the levee blowouts in Monroe County to the south, helping to pull some of that water through. Right now, the level is at 48 feet, tomorrow at 49 feet. To the Missouri, Herman continues.
A live report.
Swamped the city's water plant. That means more than 70,000 residents of Alton and neighboring communities without water in homes and businesses. Heidi Deja has a story live from Alton. Heidi.
Well, Larry and Julius, Alton is like a lot of other river communities affected by this flood, and just like everyone else, folks here are wondering when life is going to return to normal. The mayor says residents in Alton will be left high and dry for about 2 weeks, and that is hard for anyone to swallow as parched residents pick up jugs of free water.
You can't drink it, you can't flush the commodes, you know, it's like you gotta like keep getting this water, you know, to like take baths and stuff, you know. It's kind of hard around here right now.
Because of floodwaters, until further notice, over 70,000 Illinois American customers will have to tap into water distribution sites. Anita McGuire is a volunteer and a water customer.
We're very fortunate our home, you know, hasn't been in it, but I believe everybody feels like they've been affected.
While there's relief from dry taps, the traffic headaches will take even longer to untangle. Through it all, the mayor keeps an optimistic attitude.
We're very fortunate here in Alton that we didn't have to evacuate anyone from their homes. We did have to evacuate some businesses, but we didn't lose any lives.
But as in so many other communities, there are lessons to be learned from this flood. Alton is already studying.
We know we're going to have to redesign our infrastructure, and this time we'll design it in such a way that it'll withstand the pressures, and we'll find out where a lot of voids were, and we'll fill them, and we'll prevent a lot of water from coming in from unknown sources.
It's a hard way to learn, but remember, no one expected such a devastating flood. This one will definitely go down in the history books for future study. And while businesses are taking a big hit right now, the mayor is convinced that when the floodwaters recede, those businesses will rebuild and restore and come back stronger than ever. Julius and Larry?
And of course, when the waters finally go down, the grain elevators where they'd had the high water marks before, they'll have to replace that one, put one above it.
And we'll have to do that. We'll hope everything turns out there as we do hope with everything else and every place else in the area. We want to update you now on areas where residents are being advised to boil drinking water tonight.
The first location takes a little explanation. The Alton, Illinois Water District still officially under a boil order, but since the system is shut down, you shouldn't have any running water. These communities also have boil orders: Hardin, Campsville, Edwardsville, Baldwin, all in Illinois, plus Washington, Missouri.
Coast Guard tugs round up a breakaway vessels.
From the water there. We brought one of the business owners out with us here atop the Doubletree Hotel. Even he could not find his own business. It's further in the distance there, and he had trouble spotting and getting his perspective as to where his business is in relation to where we are up here. It's that massive of a devastation and destruction. And luckily for this business owner, it was Calamar Inc. They're a camera operating company. They have some disruption in insurance, business insurance. That will help meet their payroll, but they're looking forward to Wednesday. That's when FEMA comes to town, and they hope to get some federal assistance. Now, the larger companies like Mark Andy have been able to regroup. They were back in business this morning. They've got some leased space in Westport. They were able to get their phone lines up and running, but some of the smaller businesses are hurting and still looking for space.
Who would have envisioned that scene just a few days ago? Thank you, Victoria.
Certainly.
Well, an early morning scare in St. Charles proved to be just that, a scare with very little really to be frightened of. There were reports another levee had fallen in that city, but quickly officials determined the levee had not broken but was merely leaking. So no new evacuations were ordered, and the situation there is described this evening as critical but stable.